ladies and gentlemen. We'll get the meeting underway. Thank you to the Eldorado community for coming tonight. It's great to be here. And as a council, we love to share our meetings around. We do a number of meetings out in the rural communities. Last month we were up in Whitfield, a long way up there, and it's great to be out here at Eldorado. I was last year at Australia Day, and it was great to be here for Australia Day, chaired by John, which was a great event. So thank you for having us back. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have a huge agenda tonight, but we'll get through it to the point of getting out quick and thank you to the ladies here who have made sandwiches, etc., and prepared supper for us tonight. So firstly, ladies and gentlemen, this meeting will be recorded to improve access to the meeting for our community. The recording will be published and be retained by council in accordance with council's legal obligations. And as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. I'd like to acknowledge our traditional owners from the ground in which we are on here. Pay our respects to our elders past, present and emerging. Ladies and gentlemen, we also have an open prayer that by Almighty God, we humbly ask thee to bless and guide this council in its deliberations so that we may truly preserve the welfare of the people who we serve. Amen. I'll just go over, I'd like to make an apology tonight for Councillor Ashley Fitzpatrick, who won't be here tonight joining us as one of our seven. She took ill yesterday and is slowly getting a little bit better, but spoke to her on the way out, so she will not be present at this meeting. I'd like to just go around the room so you know who you're talking to in the council meeting and who talks. So I might start with one of our directors, Sarah Brindley. I'll get you, Sarah, to obviously state your name and your role at council, please, your director's role.
I'm Sarah Brindley, Director of Corporate and Leisure.
Hello, my name is Simone Nolan. I'm Acting Director of Sustainability and Culture.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jack Perry, Councillor.
Harry Russell, Councillor from the South Ward. Thank you. Brandon McGrath, CEO.
And then Reeve Mayor of Rural City.
Harvey Redden, Liberty Mayor.
Councillor Dave Fuller.
Councillor Irene Branch.
And Marcus Goonan, Director of Community Infrastructure.
Thank you. I just want to go backwards there with the acceptance of apologies. So Councillor Fitzpatrick is an apology. Can I move it to accept the apology? Councillor Fuller, and second to Councillor Grant. All those in favour? Accepted. Thank you very much. We will now move on to. I just wanted to state we have in our contents page here citizenship ceremony. Just to let the public know, if you're interested in coming to the rural city of Wangara Ratta on Wednesday the 8th of May, we have a citizenship ceremony, I think of 3 or 4 people that have been naturalised as Australians. Just putting it out there if you did want to come and see the procedure of that, you're most welcome. I'll move on to item number 7, which is our minutes from our previous meeting. And the confirmation of it. Can I look to Councillor Fuller? Did you approve those minutes? It's a true account, thank you. And a second, Councillor Benson. If there's no changes from that from any councillors, all those in favour? And the confirmation of those minutes is carried. We have a couple of conflicts of interest here tonight on a couple of items, and I just want to go through those. Firstly, I'll go to CEO McGrath. For your conflict of item, please mention the number, please.
Thank you, Mayor Rees. We have a confidential item tonight, item 22.1, and I'm declaring a conflict of interest in that. And given that it's a confidential item, the nature of that conflict has been disclosed in writing to the Mayor.
Thank you, CEO McGrath, and I'll look to Director Brindley. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm also declaring a conflict of interest for the same item as a general and material conflicts of interest as matters raised in that complaint relate to my functional area and also to my employer. I've taken independent governance and legal advice and can confirm that it's still appropriate given my experience and knowledge of this matter that I joined the council to take you through that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. We'll move further down. We have no reception of petitions or hearing of deputations. We'll go straight into, no council reports either. We'll move into officers' reports and we'll go straight to item number 13.1, which is corporate leisure, which is our 2023 quarter forecast review, and I'll hand over to Director Brindley.
Thank you again. So every quarter, council reports on its financial position versus the adopted budget, and that's something that's a statutory obligation to provide transparency to the community. For the last quarter, so the third quarter of this financial year, we have an increase in the projected full-year accounting surplus to 11.89 million, an increase in capital works expenditure to 37.34 million, and every quarter we provide an environmental upgrade agreement statement, which is required of us. The report indicates an increase to the accounting surplus of 4.2 million and to the adjusted underlying operating result of 2.35 million. And that's primarily driven by increases in forecast operating grants, in particular that we're expecting to receive from the National Disaster Recovery Funding Programme, which is for the 2022 storm events, and also relating to a decrease in overall employee costs for the year. Present the recommendation to councillors for your consideration.
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions from the gallery on this issue? No? I'll look for a mover of the recommendation. Councillor Fuller and the seconder, Councillor Herry. Councillor Fuller, do you want to talk on the recommendation? Councillor Herry, do you want to talk on the recommendation? No. Would any councillor like to talk on the recommendation? No? That's good. Must be happy with it then. We'll put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? And the recommendation is carried. Director Brindley will move to 13.2, which is the risk management policy of 2024 and the risk appetite statement for 2024.
Thank you. So effective risk management is important to council because by having a robust risk management practice, it enables us to maximise opportunity, minimise loss and improve decisions and outcomes. Council has a programme of major council policies, and the risk management policy of one of those, and they have scheduled recurring review dates. So this is just a scheduled review of that policy and of the risk appetite statement that accompanies it. And this is presented to councillors to consider adopting those. Normally for a major council policy we put them on community consultation for a period of 28 days. However, because the changes are so minor, that's not required on this occasion unless the councillors wish to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Are there any questions from the gallery on this matter? Issue? No. Can I look for a mover, please? Councillor Grant, a seconder. Councillor Benton. Councillor Grant, do you need to talk on the recommendation? Sorry, Councillor Grant, I'll just script you. Grab that microphone and turn it on.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say that I find it really interesting around the risk appetite, which at the end of the day, council can only afford to nibble at the edges of risk. It's not something that we can really have a huge appetite for, I think. So, but it's a policy that we need to have, and it's a policy that should anyone feel that they have any sort of input, even though we're accepting it here today, I'm happy to talk to anyone about that.
Thank you. Councillor Benton, did you need to report? Any other councillor would like to talk on the recommendation? No, I'll put the recommendation of the vote. All those in favour? And the recommendation is carried. Thank you. Director Brindley, 13.3, which is our Audit and Risk Committee independent member appointment. Please.
Thank you. So we have an Audit and Risk Committee that provides important oversight of our financial practices and risk management in particular. There is an adopted committee for that charter which states that the committee must be comprised of 2 councillors and of at least 3 and up to 4 independent members. We like to use all 4 independent members and the perspectives they bring, and following the end of the term of 1 member, we are just looking to now appoint a new member to the committee. So the recommendation is for council to appoint the candidate listed in the confidential attachment 1 of the report for a term of 3 years commencing from the date of this resolution and under the terms of the committee's charter, and to disclose the successful applicant and notify any other applicants of council's decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the gallery on this point? 13.3? No, thank you. Can I look for a mover, please? Councillor Herring and Councillor Bustle as a seconder. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Herring, did you want to talk on the recommendation first?
Yeah, only to say that I'm happy to endorse this recommendation for the applicant who's outlined in the confidential attachments. Having talked to the staff who have interviewed that applicant and seen a strong application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other councillor like to talk on the recommendation? Councillor Russell.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take the opportunity to thank all the audit risk people that do this work, because it's perhaps not the most exciting work for some people, but it's really, really important. Very important, and these people take it very, very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Herring is the mover and no one else wants to talk. You're happy to finish the conversation there? All right. Thank you. Put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? And the recommendation is carried. Councillor Herring, could you mention who the person is, please?
Yeah, so the successful applicant is Wilson Tang, and I look forward to working with Wilson on the Audit and Risk Committee going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Herring. I look forward to that too, being a member of the Audit and Risk. We'll now move over to items number 14 and 14.1. I'll introduce to again Director Goonan, who is here to talk on community and infrastructure, and we're talking about our draft affordable housing strategy.
Thank you, Mayor Rees. This report is presented to Council to consider the draft affordable housing strategy. In February 2023, Council held a Housing and Homeless Forum to understand what we can do as a local government organisation to support the community and further our understanding of this complex issue around housing insecurity. One of the recommendations from the forum was that Council develop an affordable housing strategy, considering the opportunities that we can explore to reduce the amount of people that are experiencing housing insecurity. Within this forum, it was agreed that the strategy needs to be place-based, developed to suit Wangaratta area and opportunities we have and the community to and services that reside here. The draft strategy has been developed over the past 5 months. During this time, we've engaged with local service agencies and other councils to understand and learn about what's needed in this space and how council can best provide the support. The draft strategy is now presented to council for consideration by placing on public exhibition. The recommendation is that council endorses the draft affordable housing strategy for 28 days, invites community submissions over that time. If submissions requesting changes to the strategy are received, reviews and considers that at the next available scheduled council meeting. If no submissions are requesting changes to the policy are received, adopts the affordable housing strategy without further resolution.
Thank you, Director Goonan. I'd just like to point out, with your recommendation on item number 2, we are talking 2024, aren't we, rather than 2023? Yep.
That's a very good point.
Yep. So that. Thank you. Are there any questions from the gallery on this one? Yes, please. And just take the microphone. Please state your name.
So Anne Dunstan, Tarangi. I'd like to commend the amount of work that's gone into this document, but the reality is it doesn't really have a great outcome for those that are homeless and suffering housing issues. My view is that council really can only advocate for land use and planning and advocate for external services to bring homeless services to Wangaratta. I personally deal with people over 55 in homeless situations on a regular daily basis, and there is not a single thing in that document that will help those people immediately or within the next 5 years. So whilst it's a great starting point, I think there's a huge amount of work that probably needs to go into that, but I also don't think it's a council responsibility.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, Director Good.
I'm happy to take the comment and thanks for understanding the amount of work that's actually gone into this. We certainly don't expect things will change overnight. Unfortunately, this is a long-term situation that's been built up over a number of years. We do believe that council do have some levers to pull, and I think the Ovens College site is a good example of where we've been able to facilitate some development. This document talks about looking at some other sites. We are doing some things in the short term. If we look at the Locker project that council have been very supportive of and put money towards, we've also got a project happening at the Bar Reserve with regards to a washing machine and things like that, and also looking at some different projects where we can supply some access to toilets and showers for some homeless people. One of the main things that council can do is actually just show some compassion, and I think we do that with allowing some of the camping, etc., that we do at Bar Reserve. And so we'll keep working on those little things, and I understand that they are little, but hopefully they make a big difference in some people's lives.
Thank you, and just agreeing with Anne with what she said in relation to council's job to advocate, and we do. Which I've spoken to you about and others about too. Brendan and myself have often been in Canberra and sitting on politicians' front doors asking for funding to try and support and get projects like Ovens College off the ground, which we're slowly doing and slowly getting things worked out. But as I remember when Paul Keating said back many years ago as Prime Minister, the government's moving millimeters, and they certainly do. Thank you. If there's any other questions from the gallery on this issue? No. I'll look for a mover to recommendation from Councillor Grant and a seconder, please, and Councillor Fuller. Councillor Grant, did you want to talk on the draft report of strategy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking forward to hearing the feedback, but I certainly appreciate the feedback from Anne, acknowledging the work that's gone into this. And it's not going to be a magic bullet by any means, but I think it's important to actually paint a picture of what housing, the situation was here in the rural city of Wangaratta, and it's important that we have that document in order to be able to then secure funding, whether it be state or federal, and we're certainly looking federal, for the Ovens College site. As Director Goonan said, this is a problem that's been evolving over a long period of time, and it's certainly not going to be something that's going to be fixed in the short term. But with this document, we're going to be able to use it as a way to advocate and perhaps facilitate a greater movement towards housing and affordable housing for the community across the board.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Any other councillor like to talk to the recommendation? Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just acknowledging that part of this conversation also is about how we actually look at what housing is and what it means to people and how we can adapt as a society into the future. And this document does lead towards having some of those conversations, I feel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. I would also like to point out we've had a person working with council in an advisory role here, which is Tony Keenan, for a short period of time, who was also as a member of Homes Victoria Board, so we've first-handed everything that had to go on, so we were really lucky to acquire Tony for that period of time to help with this strategy. So thank you. Councillor Herrick.
Yeah, we certainly were lucky because it's no small piece of work that we have before us. I guess I'd first like to reiterate some of the comments that fellow councillors have made, just highlighting that this is a really important area. And I support the intent of this draft document we have before us and recognise that it's got a lot of good actions, although perhaps not, all the fixes to the problems immediately that we face today for this really significant and sometimes intractable issue. However, I've got some really major qualms about the document. And I guess, like a few of the comments have been about how big this issue is and that things aren't going to change overnight. And I think that's certainly true, and I especially think it's true if we have documents with content such as this document, which really propagate, I think, a one-sided view of housing and looking at housing as only a supply-sided issue. And there are some specific parts of the document, like on page 1, where it says, quoting, that this is because housing supply has not been sufficient to meet the demand. So that it's stating that's the reason why we have a housing problem, purely because of housing supply not being sufficient to meet demand. I take issue with that because it's excluding all the demand side factors of our housing market, and I think, and you're welcome to make further comment, Councillor Fuller, but I think Councillor Fuller was getting at what housing means to us as a society and what sort of levers we want to have acting in that housing market. And I don't think this document fully grapples with that. So, while I take issue with it, I am happy to endorse it for going out to community, but I certainly wouldn't adopt the document in its current form. There are some other issues I have with it, like, for example, it talks about what is affordable housing, and it states that, quoting again, broadly defined, affordable housing is non-market housing. So are we saying that only non-market housing is affordable housing? Are we saying that we're resigned to the fact that, you know, the market housing, any rental you get out on the private market, in housing market, has a right to not be affordable? Like, is that something as a society we're going to accept? I just don't think this document is kind of grappling with the big picture. While it's got a lot of merit to it, as I said, to the actions, it's not grappling with the big picture. It's not visionary enough to some degree, and I don't feel like, you know, things will change if everyone is producing documents which speak about the issue in this one-sided manner. So I do look forward to seeing what comes back from the community and the broader discussion, but yeah, I guess I give my own reserved endorsement for it to go out there today. I think there is.
Thank you, Councillor Harry. If there's no other ones, I'll look back to Councillor Grant. Did you want to finish as the mover of that recommendation?
Yes. Can I ask a question?
Well, yes, I will now. We've done public, but I will come back to you. Yes, please. I did want to ask that question. Just one moment. I'll just get Jess to come with the microphone so we can hear it for transcribing messages.
So it's just a question to Councillor Harry about that bigger picture, that it seems to me, just listening to it, that it is focused on, you know, the building of houses and accessibility and all of that can't be done short term, but does it address in any way some of the underlying causes of homelessness, like domestic violence and mental health issues and drug addictions? Is that mentioned in there anyway at all, and should that be considered as part of the strategic approach?
Great question. Director Green, do you have anything on that? Or I know the question was aimed at Jack.
Look, I don't, I'm just trying to think, does the document explicitly mention those things? I think the
does,
yes. Some of the gender sides, yeah. I think that's the crux of the issue, is getting to the critical nature of housing, and that it relates to every aspect of our life and interacts with every aspect of our life, and is influenced by all the situations that we are in as individuals, be they, yes, it's, you know, substance issues or mental health issues or domestic violence issues, which is just why it shouldn't be something that we just resign to and say, you know, we're going to leave it to the market and you know, only government-owned non-market housing is affordable. Like, it's an essential critical service, and we need stronger language. We need to change our approach to it. And we're small, we're a city of Eldorado, we're a small council, but we can't do it all by ourselves, but we can contribute to that if we push.
Thank you, Councillor Eric. Councillor Grant, in finishing off.
I knew what I was going to say before, but not what I was going to say now. Look, the strategy really, the aim of it was to give us a greater understanding of what housing actually looked like in the rural city of Wangaratta. Obviously, what housing means is, the thing that sort of underpins it, and it is referred to in the strategy. The problem is something that is far beyond the capacity of any council to address. And in fact, a report that would address the finer points of housing would be even beyond the rural city of Wangaratta. It was something that we felt was necessary in order to paint the picture of what housing looked like in Wangaratta and what in the rural city of Wangaratta and what we as a council needed to do. And it was certainly about the advocacy and to facilitate the process. It's going to be a job of work that's going to take some time. We knew from the outset that it was going to be a difficult one and something that, wasn't going to be solved overnight. So I'm looking forward to actually hearing the feedback, but I think, we need to also be realistic about, what a council like the rural city of Wangaratta is able to do.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. So in closing now, we'll put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour of adopting the policy, and the recommendation is carried. Sorry, to go out for consultation. Yes, not enforcing the policy. Out for consultation. Thanks, Jeff. We'll move on to 14.2, which is the recreational strategy. Director Goonan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This report is presented to Council to adopt a recreational strategy. It includes a summary of the changes that are incorporated based on the feedback through the public exhibition period. The title, one of the main changes is the title has been changed to Recreation Strategy from Recreation and Open Space Strategy. This is to better reflect the intent of the document to outline Council's commitment to accessible and diverse recreation for the community. This strategy will set the direction for planning, development, maintenance and activation of spaces within the rural city of right up to the year 2033. The recreational strategy is part of Council's commitment to health and wellbeing of its community, including a commitment to providing safe space for recreation, whether that recreation is passive, informal, play-based or part of organised sport. Extensive consultation was undertaken as part of the development of the strategy, and feedback from many sources was incorporated into this final document. The majority of the feedback during the exhibition was supportive, including a growing number of non-traditional sports that call the rural city home. The majority of the changes to the strategy were around provisions of clarity of the recommendations and actions, as well as including sporting organisations who had not participated in the process earlier. The recommendation before Council is to accept the amended changes to the draft Recreation and Open Space Strategy, including the title change to Recreation Strategy, and adopts Recreation Strategy 2024 to 2033.
Thank you, Director Goonan. Are there any questions from the gallery? No, I do have a public question that I will read out in relation to this issue. So this is from Claire Russell for the Merrill Park and Gardens Group, has asked the following question to be presented at Council meeting on the 30th of April. The question is as below. We wish to ask at tomorrow night's Rural City Wangaratta Council meeting, it relates to the open space strategy and asked by the Merrill Park and Gardens Group. Along with being contemporary recreational spaces, there are two citywide parks referred to in the document that are of historic importance, Merrill Park and the King George V Gardens. Would Council consider a minor addition to the wording of the recreation strategy? We suggest in the two passages that dedicated to each of these parks, the word historic be added. Director Goonan?
Thank you for your question, Claire. I will leave this decision on this minor change to councillors as part of the recommendation.
If there's no further questions from the gallery, no, that wasn't a private question, I'll put the recommendation to look for a mover of the recommendation. Councillor Benton and a seconder. Councillor Bussell. Councillor Benton, do you want to talk on the recommendation?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Probably been involved in this fairly heavily role of portfolio sports and recreation for some time, and I would just like to just counsel the officers to take back to the other officers that have done a lot of work after halfway through the consultation period and really made the document a far better readable and workable document. And it was great to see the name change. I think it was going to be rather clumsy document if we just couldn't get a bit more simplicity to it, and the executive summary that covers made out, I think, has really enhanced this document. So, Mr. Mayor, I'll move as the recommendation is put.
Accept the amendment of draft as is, right? And secondly was Councillor Russell. Do you have anything further to add to Councillor Russell? Right, did any other councillor have anything to add to the recommendation, the story? Councillor?
Yeah, I'll, just so it doesn't get unaddressed, I will move an amendment to the motion that the document be modified with that very minor change that was suggested or requested in the question. The word historic in 2 places, I believe.
Okay, so thank you for the amendment to class as those parks as historic.
Not to class, because there's no classification system per se, but to insert those words into the document.
Right, to insert those words. Harvey, as the Councillor Benton, as the mover of that, are you happy to move that with that change?
Yeah, I'll agree with it. I don't think it's any going to make any great impact on it. I'll put the word historic down.
Okay. Councillor Bussell, as the seconder, are you happy for that wording going?
Not
So I'll take that as a no. Right, yeah. Is it?
I'm not sure whether
No, if it does, I can ask. It's an amendment. So can I ask for another seconder that is happy to second that? No, who's the mover? Oh, okay. Keep learning every day. 6 years as mayor, I'm still learning. Sorry? The amendment doesn't need a seconder. To debate, we debate it first to see whether, even though you as the mover moved it and accepted the change, I'll go to, you're still the mover. Would you like to talk firstly on it? Yeah, the amendment was moved by you, we haven't seconded it though, but we don't need a second. Sorry, you're right. Jack was the mover, Harvey was then. Are you happy to have that amendment in there to be then still the mover of the original? Okay, I'll go to you, Jack, then, for your comments.
Yeah, so I guess for such a minor change, I'm surprised it's become such a big conversation. Yeah, I just think it's a very small detail. I mean, I can't dispute with the fact that we recognise them as locally considered historic, really significant, lovely parks. I mean, that's it. It's really minor kind of detail.
Any other councillor like to talk on it? Councillor Bussell, you'll talk first, and then Councillor Grant. Is that right?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. They're significant parks, they're not historic parks, they're significant. I think it's semantics, but I just don't think it's the right word to use in these parks, that's all.
Thank you. Councillor Grant.
Well, I agree that it's an issue of semantics. You know, they are significantly beautiful. They're, important to Eldorado. They're jewels in the crown in terms of open space that we have in the little city of Eldorado. But historic, I don't know. I'm asking the question that if we accept this historic, what does that mean? Then, what does that translate into? And that would be the question I would ask.
Councillor, did you want to talk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, my definition of historic would alter to everyone in the room potentially, and I would say that a 60,000-year-old country, perhaps there's a different definition of historic, and in this instance, they're relatively young, I think, in a way, so I'm not going to support the amendment.
Thank you. Okay, I'll put the amendment to the vote with councillors. Sorry, Councillor Fuller, Councillor, as the mover, did you have anything further to add? To finish up the debate? No. I'll put the recommendation or that amendment to the vote. All those in favour? And that's not carried. We'll go back to the original recommendation, which Councillor Benson was the mover and Councillor Bustle was the seconder. Is that correct? Yes. Councillor Benson, did you want to talk further? Sorry, you've already spoken. Did any other councillor want to speak? No? Councillor Benson, and as the mover, did you want to finish off? Sorry, yes?
Yes, so we're talking about the original.
Yes, on the original one. Please turn the mic on when you're ready.
Councillor Benson was the only person who spoke on this so far. And I guess I'm at odds with his perspective on the matter, and he's expressed support for the change of name for the document, kind of narrowing of the document, I guess, going from more of a broad open space and recreation strategy down to a recreation strategy. And I'll briefly try to be brief, outline why I've got an issue with that. I think that in endorsement of this to go out to the public, I highlighted that I think there's some missed opportunities, missed co-benefits in this document. Like some of the data that was gathered revealed that a lot of the recreational activities that people do are not organised sports at specific organised sport type facilities. You know, the majority of it is that low-key stuff, walking, bushwalking, cycling, those sorts of activities. So, really, I do wonder what is the purpose of this document. Like, why was its direction not guided by that information? And why did it narrow the scope and exclude those open spaces in a more holistic sense? Because it's those, you can't pin walking and cycling and bushwalking or those sorts of things down to a specific facility. It's a more holistic discussion, and there are activities which kind of work into our everyday, become part of our getting to work or daily life. And I just think it's a missed opportunity, really, to take a bigger view of what we want recreation in this community to be. I think the change of name kind of really just narrows it and makes it more of an organised sport type document, which really I can't put my support behind that narrowing, less holistic approach.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll just point out on our previous motion, I'm going to go backwards now, on our previous amendment, it does say where a councillor proposes an amendment to which either a mover or a seconder does not agree, the following will apply. That must be moved and seconded, and the council may speak on the movement. Sorry, I'm going back to you did need a mover which was Jack, you didn't need a second, we didn't get a seconder, so it should have lapsed, is my thought there. But anyway, we're here on this one now. We've had it moved, we've had it seconded by Councillor Bustle, we've spoken about it. Is there any other councillor that would like to speak about it before I go back to the original mover to finish off? No? Councillor Benson, did you need to finish? You done it? Oh, I think so too, drag on. I'll put the recommendation to the vote, all those in favour, and the recommendation is carried. We'll move to 14.3, and I won't even read that one because we need to change that around that heading. Director Goonan, what should that read?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Rees. So the report heading should be the Resource and Recovery Collective Hume awarding a collaborative tender for waste and recycling services. Are you okay if I continue with the exec summary?
Yes, yeah, correct.
This report is presented following a resolution from the March 2023 scheduled council meeting to award the tender for the Resource Recovery Collective Hume to award the resource a regional collaborative tender for waste and recycling services across the Hume region. Council, with the assistance of Russell Kennedy lawyers, has facilitated the negotiations on the final contract departures and price with Cleanaway. In this process, council officers have recommended the removal of the glass curbside collection. The reason for the recommendation of this removal is the delayed supply of new curbside trucks. The delivery of the new curbside trucks will govern the implementation of the additional photo and glass and will create a greater economic scale if achieved at the same time. The container deposit scheme is having a significant impact on glass generation volumes within the municipality, and the current minimum tendered service frequency is 2 months, and it may result in a low presentation of volumes. The funding partners, DECA and Sustainability Victoria, have been consulted on the proposal and have offered in principle support for the pause on the glass rollout. The recommended contractor Cleanaway have also been consulted and are generally in support of us excluding that as well. The recommendation put to council is that council awards the recycling curb collection contract to Cleanaway with the adjustment of the removal of glass collection and discloses the contract value for the curbside collection.
Thank you, Derek. Are there any questions from the gallery on this matter? No, I'll look for a mover of the recommendation. Councillor Benton and Councillor Fuller will second. Councillor Benton, anything to report on this? No. Councillor Fuller as the seconder? No. Any other councillor would like to report on this issue? No. It's a pretty simple one. Put the recommendation to vote. All those in favour? And the recommendation is carried. Director Goonan, can you bring forward the price, please?
Yes, the price for this contract is $1,350,000 per annum.
Thank you. We'll move down. There's no sustainability and culture reports tonight, special committee reports, advisory committee reports, but we will go to number 18, which is advisory committee meetings. And I will look to you, CEO Grant, to report.
Thank you, Mayor Rees. Tonight we have the minutes of the 3rd of April Advisory Committee meeting of the Arts and Culture Advisory Committee for Council to note.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the gallery? This one, no. Can I look for a mover, Councillor Fuller, and a seconder, Councillor Bustle. Councillor Fuller, could you please talk?
Yes, I can talk. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
On this.
I'd like to take this opportunity to echo the Arts and Cultural Advisory Committee's concerns regarding state government funding to public libraries. It's imperative that we maintain these vital services for our community. They are much more than the books, and I could spend an hour on what that entails. But we must just simply implore government to maintain commitments to our public libraries. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Did any other councillor want to talk on the recommendation? No, I'd like to say that I agree with Councillor Fuller. Our libraries are a great community space and we need to keep funding from the government to keep it alive and well. So thank you. So I'll put the recommendation to vote. All those in favour? And the recommendation is carried. Thank you, Councillor Fuller. We're going to move to item number 19, which is a notice of motion, which isn't a regular thing that councillors do. But Councillor Benton at 19.1, Councillor Benton, who is our Deputy Mayor, would like to get a notice of motion forward. Councillor Benton, with the microphone, please, to talk about your executive summary on why you're bringing this forward and then what the notice of motion is.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This motion has been brought forward because of the state government's new legislation, which has taken away the community's rights to appeal planning decisions at VCAT. Critically, this motion is necessary in order to deliver the desired outcomes for the section of 4.224 and 4.221 of the Rural City of Wagarata's Council Plan, which says support businesses, industry to innovate, value-add, adapt and grow to the changing needs across the key sectors of health, agriculture, food, beverage, tourism, logistics and manufacture and retail. Agriculture is the main driver with a multiplier factor of 4 for the rural city of Wagga the loss of the destruction of arable land currently producing food and beverage and fibre to renewable energy infrastructure, also transmission lines, will have a serious and long-lasting economic impact to the municipality. In addition to the economic impacts, the loss of agricultural land will also have a significant negative social and environmental impacts. While clean renewable energy is vital for the future of our planet, so too is our viability to feed and nurture and positively grow our rural communities. I move the motion that the Rural City of Wangaratta Council develop a resource and advocacy action plan as a matter of urgency to repeal the current legislation that limits the community's ability to contest a planning decision at the Victorian Civil Appeals Tribunal. 2. The Rural City of Wangaratta asks the state government to support this in protection of agricultural land for food, fibre and viticulture production, as any signal change to our rural landscape will have adverse impacts economically, socially, environmentally across the whole municipality. The action plan would be communicated to and supported from all political representatives, peak industry bodies and government agencies. The peak local government bodies and they would also be lobbied for support.
Thank you, Councillor. Can I have a seconder? You're moving that motion. Can I have a seconder, please? And I will, I'm happy to second it. Councillor Green, thank you. Councillor Benton, as the mover, did you want to talk further to the recommendation?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. This is brought about because I think it's got to a time the line in the sand has got to be drawn. In the first part, it's the methodology that's going on in relationship to being able to expedite this infrastructure or any proposal without any going to the BCAT is really a position of taking away a lot of our liberties. It also gives direction to the council to have a position to be able to go out and talk on. In the past, we've been a little bit hamstrung to say what our position is because of the repercussions of showing our position outside the council chamber. It is no way in preventing individuals from obtaining renewable energy. It's about the method that it is employed to get to an end. However, I think, Mr. Mayor, in relation to the ability, there is plenty of decisions being made or recorded, and I've read from a document from Professor Michael Buxton. Professor Buxton says the document made it clear communities, farmers, environmentalists subjected to renewable energy projects face a stacked deck. The real problem is the planning minister controls both the assessment and the approvals process and developers apply directly to the minister. He said, when you couple this with the lack of any requirements for the minister to consider the submissions, then it would have to be concluded that these projects are a done deal for approvals unless there is an overriding problem. This is a conflict of interest of the minister. So, if we can't put ourselves into a situation we get told time and time again in making sure that we have done the planning situation and agriculture is one of the things that is going to be heavily impacted, we are continually told by the planners that we must be able to support agriculture. And agriculture takes in a lot of things, not just sheep, cattle and wheat, going forward. The second part of the motion, I think, is the most, I'm going to say, devious, because in this document, offshore wind policy directions, it's not a draft, it's not a green paper or white paper discussion paper. It hidden in this offshore wind policy is the ability for the government to say that if they don't achieve the requirements of offshore wind, renewable energy, they will have to take up 70% of the Victorian agricultural landscape. They do that by justifying that South Australia and New South Wales have got more agricultural land. Don't think South Australia won't be doing the same as they're doing in Victoria, wanting to put renewables in. I don't think that New South Wales won't be putting renewables in. Plus, there's one other thing, I think a big factor would be the lack of rainfall in some of those states that we have in Victoria, a far superior to be able to have a good production of agriculture. And some would say we've got too much production, so therefore we could lose a bit more land. If you remember, it's about good enough back about 2 years ago or 3 years ago, there was people fighting in supermarkets to get product because we couldn't get it. So it can run out very easily, and I think this whole for to be able to get to a point by 2050 without any ability to make sure that food and fibre is going to be available at the content we have. We've got cost of living and price situation at the moment, and this is going to impact on the very fact that you people out there in front of me don't have any ability to appeal this over 1 gigawatt. You will not be told by all further documentation they have here, you will not be told anything. And this document, I will say, was signed in March 22 by the Minister of the Embryosia, who overrides agriculture. And yet, I have another document here from the Minister of Agriculture supporting what they're trying to do for agriculture. We are proudly breaking our small-scale producers, and that's what you're going to become, small, in prime production, you're going to be small-scale producers.
Yes. Yep, thank you.
I'll leave it there at the time.
The right reply, you do have a longer time to speak as a member, and it's a minute. No, he has a longer time, you get 2 minutes together, and I can override or approve. So, councillors, would any other councillor like to talk to the recommendation? Councillor Russell, do you want to talk to him? No, I wasn't. I was the second.
Sorry.
Yes. No. No. Certainly doesn't need to speak second. I offer that. Councillor Grant.
Thanks, Mr. I'm going to support Councillor Benton's notice of motion for a number of reasons. The rural city of Wangaratta Council and our community, I fear, is being removed from decision making that will directly affect and impact on us. We won't have any say in what will happen in our own backyard, and that is of great concern to me. Removing planning decision-making capacity from local government is a significant erosion of council local government capacity. And when this decision-making is without any opportunity to appeal to VCAT for input, this is even of greater concern. The potential for the rural city of Wangaratta landscape to change forever, and perhaps not necessarily in a productive or even in a positive way, is another cause for concern. Now, I need to stress this. While we all want renewable and sustainable energy, we do not want it to come with cost to the environment, loss of agricultural land, and the ability to produce food, not just for ourselves, but for Australia and the world. And never forget our important place in the Murray-Darling water basin. This is an issue, a process that needs to be viewed both cautiously and with a critical eye. And I wonder whether this is being done at the moment, and this is an issue of concern as well. While this is not a recent government decision, state government decision, the question is being asked of me as a councillor. What can we do to assist and influence the changes currently being made in our community? The plan for the future, Planning needs to be coherent, it needs to be visible, and with the ability to react and to take into account local conditions and circumstances. And I'm not sure that that's happening right at the moment.
Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I find that supporting community is a primary role of us as councillors, and some changes of late to planning have somewhat hampered our ability to fulfil parts of our obligations. Equally, in potentially supporting this notice of motion, I'd like to see that we are also considering in the future advocating for ways in which renewables can be used to support small-scale operations, and especially in a way that which they help those that are struggling to use or to access alternative forms of power for heating and cooling, and don't have the same financial access for renewable energy. Thank you.
Councillor Russell, did you have anything to say? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm disappointed this motion has been put forward because to me it looks like a note out of a Conservative Party's pre-selection handbook. If you wanted to lobby for change, the appropriate channel would be with our state members, not at a council meeting in Eldorado. Now, in the short executive summary, 3 or 4 parts I think are factually incorrect, and I'd love to see others fact check that too. So part 1 of the motion, be very careful what you wish for, and part 2 of the motion is misleading and in my opinion factually wrong, so I don't see how any fair-minded, reasonable person could vote yes to this motion, and I don't think that staff should be wasting time and money on a politically motivated agenda. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Harry, did you have something?
Yeah, I do. I guess I'd just like to preface my comments with reminding everybody that until the vote is taken, you can cast your vote either way, whether you've said comments for a proposal or against the proposal. It's never too late to reconsider. So I've got serious misgivings about this notice of motion. I trust that the Mayor will handle this discussion, and I would like for it to be a fulsome one. I don't necessarily think that we just need to say our bit as each councillor and then, job done, like a debate, a discussion, can go back and forth. And in calling Councillor Benton's time earlier, I wasn't trying to end his contribution. I invite him back into the discussion, certainly. But yeah, I do trust that the Mayor will handle this debate, this discussion, fair-handedly.
That you are spending time talking about whether I'll handle the debate correctly, and talking for or against this motion would be more important.
Yes, just giving your intimate involvement in preparing the motion. And if there were a casting vote, I trust the casting vote will be cast in favour of the status quo. While not a rule, it is a tradition. But I just want to address a couple of points that were raised by some colleagues earlier that spoke for the motion. Look, there are some serious issues. I just don't know where to start, to be honest. So agriculture. Agriculture is important. Food is important, certainly. But the availability or the application of how we use land is not the limiting factor around how we produce food. Like, the fact is we do a lot of inefficient production of food. 50% of the world's inhabitable land is used for agriculture. 70% of that is used for animal agriculture, yet it only produces about 20 or 30% of our protein and very low amounts of our calories. So it's just a complete nonsense argument that this is going to jeopardise, or these projects will jeopardise, our food security. Further, some comments were made around availability of food on the shelves earlier during COVID, I think the reference was. That was all about supply chains. That wasn't about suddenly the farmers could stop producing. That was how we organise things. The document about offshore wind was referenced, like a discussion paper about offshore wind, which was somehow suggesting we're going to apply. It was portrayed as if the document suggested we were heading towards 70% of agricultural land with wind or solar farms. That's nonsense. That is absolute nonsense. That document was a discussion paper which was simply talking about offshore wind capacity and saying, look, if we didn't consider other options in 30 years' time, in 2050, to meet our energy needs, you know, if we put our blinkers on and took options off the table like offshore wind and wanted to do it all onshore with only solar and wind, then it could take up to 70% of agricultural land. However, the document also states in the same sentence 4 times the land area of Melbourne. So it equates 70% of the agricultural land, 170,000 square kilometres is the agricultural land in Victoria, so 70% of that is 140,000 square kilometres or whatever. Not good maths on the spot, don't have it prepared, but Melbourne's square kilometre measurements is only about 20,000 or something, so 4 times that would be 80,000. It's just, the document probably got pulled because it was pretty dodgy. I mean, in a lot of respects, it was embarrassing to a degree. At least that maths portion of it was. Loss and destruction of agricultural land is referenced in the motion. It's not loss or destruction. For agricultural land to be utilised for, say, renewable energy, or for transmission lines are referenced in the notice of motion. I see a lot of agriculture going on underneath transmission lines, and there are a lot of renewable energy facilities which have agricultural activities going on. So if that's your real concern, how about we advocate for more of that? Because I think that would be great. If we had really strong requirements that agricultural land is not only used for renewable energy generation, it's also used for production of agricultural outputs. We extract more value from the land, which is what a lot of this is about at the end of the day. A couple of questions to re-invite some of my colleagues into the discussion. I really do wonder what you hope to achieve through moving this motion, this notice of motion. And also, I do wonder, perhaps for the member of our group, Councillor Grant, who sits on the advisory panel for the handing out grants, I think, in association with the renewable energy operation. Is there really no benefit that's going to come out of these projects? Are they all negative, as this notice of motion kind of portrays it?
Can I respond to you now, Mr. Harry? I think this is slightly broader. I've supported this motion as a way of drawing attention to the need for cautious and a critical eye over what's happening in our community, and as I said, it was about the erosion of council responsibility and the inability of council to appeal any decision, any planning decision, should that be made. Now, the issue is much bigger than all of us, and I think we're certainly not going to solve that with this notice of motion, but it's about, standing up and saying, we support our community that have expressed their deep concern about what's happening there. They feel that they are not having any control over this. So, that is the reason, as I said, I very simply stated why I supported that. And also, you mentioned that I'm on a committee with the people at Glenrowan, with the solar farm there, and that's working well, and we're working very closely with that community, and that's a facility that's worked hand in hand with the community in terms of the way it's moved forward. But it has taken agricultural land out of the equation. You can have a little flock of sheep, but that's about it. So, yes, that's all I can say on the matter.
Thank you, Councillor Grant. Councillor Herry, can you get on to finishing off?
Yeah, well, I mean, the notice of motion highlights loss of agricultural land and economic impacts, portrays it as negative, whereas I think there are lots of potential positive economic impacts. I'm sure some of that groups Grant is perceived as positive. But to the matter of to point one, which talks about the removal of the exemption from the VCAT process. Now, I've got a lot of sympathy for the expectation that there are good processes around community engagement. However, I would look at another really core issue, which is alongside agriculture, food production, energy production, because this is about energy at the end of the day. We have to remember that we need new forms of energy, and there's a reason why we're doing this. A really big reason is about carbon emissions and climate change. Think what you will about that, but it's quite well recognised. And I think of another matter, and that's housing. And housing is an area in which the government has certain exemptions that exempts projects from going through that whole VCAT process, because people don't want certain forms of housing in, their local areas. No, well, I don't think so. I think I do wonder why, if that same principle is so poor, then why doesn't this council have a motion on the table? And to be honest, this notice of motion, the way it's written, is not specific about the. It just says to appeal the current legislation.
Jack, you're running out of time, and I
Which limits the
think we're getting this story on where you're heading with your vote, so I think we can sort of end it there to give somebody else a chance to
It's less about vote.
You did pull up Councillor Benton. You pulled up Councillor Benton as the mover of the recommendation. You've certainly gone over his time frame. So in closing, you were going to say?
Well, just the way it's written. The way it's written, it doesn't specify which legislation and which Victorian Civil Appeals Tribunal exemptions. So it could very well reference, we as a council, that we are opposing legislation which limits communities' ability to contest a planning decision about housing to the VCAT. I mean, the way I read it.
Yep. Thank you. We'll take that as an end. So, everybody's spoken except for me, and I'll point out one thing. As in the other comments, this is giving you, the people, your right to take a decision made by the government to appeal it at the Victorian Civil Administrative Tribunal. This is the Allen's government's way, and not a political speech. This is purely the Allen government taking away the right for people to object to something that may be going on next to their house, their farm, which again is another sign of getting rid of us as councillors, because they will make all planning decisions in the future. You can appeal this to the Supreme Court on a point of law, and there is no point of law around it to appeal it to the Supreme Court, and it's a very costly episode to do so. I'm not going to talk about whether it's solar or whatever it is. This is purely about taking away you, the people's right to appeal the decision. It happens when council make a decision and you don't like it, you can appeal it to VCAT and it could get overturned. But you've lost that right to be able to do that. So I'll support the motion because of the loss of the right to appeal what goes on properties next door to you. And I urge all my councillors to vote on that decision, which is here in the other comments. It's the summary about taking away the rights to appeal at VCAT. Thank you. I'll now talk to Councillor Benton. As the mover, you have the right to round off the debate.
Mayor Rees,
So,
if I may,
yes.
your comments just then didn't clarify the ambiguity that I highlighted. You made references about people's right to object to things that happen near where they live or work, or etc.
Yeah.
Is that also housing? Is this statement, is this council putting its weight behind?
I answered your question. You didn't ask me a question about housing. You mentioned it in your speech. I'm telling you, this is the government's first way of taking away your right to appeal decisions. There'll be many more that don't take
Decisions
away
about what?
and decisions on, well, it is decisions on this solar fund specifically, but other decisions can be that case too. So it can be many cases. They're taking more decisions away from local government. Decisions shouldn't be made out of Spring Street. There's local issues, local decisions, appealing should be made here. Councillor Benton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. In closing this debate, I'd just like to answer a couple of things that have been said previously. Got to fact check some of the figures that I said earlier. They're not my figures, they're the figures of the document, of this document, that is supposed to be a discussion paper. It's a policy. It's said on the front of it, it's a policy. It's nothing something we can discuss, and it says in there, this policy was supposed to be discussed with the community. It's over 3 years old, 2 years ago, and we've heard nothing. Until I got this sent to me by a constituent, no one knew anything of it. I have spoken to other people to get some clarity around it that was fair income, right? Nobody knows anything. Even the peak bodies, even our own peak organisation of the local government knows nothing. Don't know anything about it, haven't been told anything about it. It's what we've had to pick up going through all the documents that I've been able to accumulate now in relationship to the capacity it is going to cannibalise product reduction going forward. It may take 25 years, but it will get there the way it is going. It's all very well to say it's going to be farming. I have reports from northern New South Wales where they are putting sheep under Glenwell, but that's all you can do. You can't fertilise it. People say, oh yes, you can put up the solar so you can drive a tractor on it. Well, it's still limited what you can do with like that ability, and it starts to impact the neighbours around it. And I've got people that I know in Barn Water there that have now got their solar panels, who've got their solar panels 20 metres from his front door. You want it to at least have 200 metres of space. You've got 220 metres. You're going to have to put up that risk of life, and those people have been there for 5 generations. So, and I reiterate what the Mayor has said, it is about making sure you people still have the liberties and the rights that we've reflected on in the last week, that people give sacrifices up to be able to do this. If it's going to be gradually eroded away, well, you're going to come but we've tried to fight for over the years. And I think if you're going to write a document and call it something else, well, where's the plan, where's the confidence that we can make decisions on going forward? And if we don't take a stand, at least get some sort of clarity about going forward, because even now, anything is exempt. Even big cat can't do anything because it's exempt from the planning scope. And the minister doesn't have to even advise you.
Yes,
On April the 4th,
I'll control the meeting, thank you.
April the 4th, it was gazetted into the planning screen, I think it was under 53.
Point of order, you said it, I said you can now be quiet, and I'll let Councillor Benton finish.
And I'm just going to I'll close by saying this. Each colleague here in June 21 supported a council plan by supporting what was written in the preamble to this. You're either going to show your support going forward now and show some consistency, or you're going to be able to say throw the primary reduction under the bus. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Herry, what was your point of order?
The concluding remarks are only meant to be in response to new material that was brought forward. I don't think they would contain that.
I don't think that on my point of order list here,
Doesn't seem government's rules.
well, doesn't constitute improper behaviour, I can allow it, and I'll allow it to go on now, path. So, with all those comments now, I'll now put the recommendation to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? And the vote is tied, so as the Mayor I have the controlling vote and the motion is carried. Thank you. Did you want a division? Can we get a division please? I'll note all those in favour. Councillor Councillor Grant, Councillor Benson, Councillor Rees. All those against? Councillor Herry, Councillor Bussell, Councillor Fuller, and in the division and the controlling vote, Councillor Rees. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll now move forward to, we'll now go to, we do have a confidential item at 22.1, but we'll go to public question time first. And I hope there's no questions on solar farms. So we have a couple of questions from that were submitted to us, and there was one question that was submitted last month's council meeting on the 27th, and I just wanted to go over that question. Part of the question was answered, but we took part of the question on notice, and I just wanted to make it in public that the question has been answered. So Jeremy Cradle asked the following question in the March council meeting, which was taken on notice. The question was in response to, why did Council's Planning Department not provide you with the information you requested, including a list of objectives and the VCAT practice note PNPE2 information? So our response was, Council must supply VCAT with the information required by VCAT practice note PNPE2, which includes a table and attachments. The PNPE2 information includes the names and addresses of the objectives. Parties listed in the VCAT initial order are required to receive a copy of the PNPE2 table only, not the attachments. It is Council's practice in these circumstances to advise parties to obtain these copies from the Victorian Civil Administrative Tribunal, and they are the managing authority for proceedings and determine whether it is appropriate to distribute all documents. This allows parties an opportunity to obtain additional documents and that they may have been provided to VCAT by the applicant for review that Council has not yet received. So thank you for that, Jeremy. Hope that answers that question. I'll also point out there's a question from Tegan Doyle, asked a question for tonight's meeting. The question will be, will the rural city of Wangaratta Council fly the Pride flag for Ida Hobbit Day on the 17th of May 2024? Tegan, the response is the Council continues to support Ida Hobbit Day and will display the flag on the day in a number of venues, including the Council office foyer, as we have done in the past. I'll now move down to another question. There was one from Claire Russell, but that was answered during one of the items today, one of the recommendations. Item number 4, John Bell asked the following question at the council meeting. I would like the question to clarify a few issues with the Rural City of Wangaratta request system at tomorrow night's meeting. I also have a question regarding Dobson Street, Eldorado. The requests are in relation to Eldorado Hall, and no one lets the committee know when the contractor is doing the work. The requests are closed before the work has been done. Contractors often make 2 trips or more to Eldorado to complete the work. Director Gooding, do you have a response for that question? I'm sure you do.
Yeah, thanks for the question, John, and thanks for sticking with us. With the essential maintenance services, which is one of the things that's happening now, we actually don't always know when the contractors are attending because we've got a municipality-wide contract with them. We certainly do our best to notify the various committees, but also understand we don't always get that right with so many community buildings and contractors out there. Requests are closed once we let that piece of work to a contractor, i.e. we have a binding agreement with them to then complete the work. I understand that the piece of follow-up that you probably appreciate then is us actually telling you when that might happen, so I'll chat to the team and we can work on that for sure. So I understand that. The one about the multiple trips, I think it's a little bit twofold. So sometimes the contractors actually come out here and we ask them to do additional work while they're out here, so they've got to go back and get things. And sometimes we, with our customer request system, someone might say that there's water leaking or something like that. They'll go out to look at a water leak and it's actually more serious than that. So they've got to go back into town and replace a bit of plywood or plasterboard or something like that. So yeah, there is multiple trips in that. We're aware of that and we do try to limit that. And I'm more than happy to talk through any other issues that you've got about that in detail after the meeting. But we do try to do our best in that space, but just understand there is a lot of buildings that we're managing and we really appreciate the amount of time and effort that the community groups who manage the buildings alongside us put into them.
Thank you, Director. And also, Dobson Street is impassable in winter months and is used by some people for mobility, scooter access and wheelchairs.
Yes, so Dobson Street is managed by council to the last driveway. That's as per the road management plan. The section of the driveway from the gate, to the gate, is not maintained in any way by council. I drove down there before the meeting and had a bit of a look at that. I think we've got a possibility to have a look at having some sort of path down there and preventing vehicles going down. That's something that we need to discuss with the rest of the community, and I assume CFA, etc. would be wanting access possibly at some point, but we need to have a little bit more of a look into that. But at this point in time, we certainly don't maintain that section at all.
Can I add to that question?
Sure.
Yeah,
You can.
specifically.
Just one moment, I'll just go and grab the microphone so we can hear on the sound when we're transcribing else.
Roxanne Wadsworth, I'm a resident of Eldorado, and in the summer months I drive on that track on an almost daily basis to access the Sturdy Beach at the end, along with other people who require it, mostly for fishing and swimming, but also if they have water pumps for their water rights, and also as maintenance work by Parks Victoria when that happens. There's been no maintenance done there for about 20 years. It did used to be maintained all the way to the gate. The result has been that when it's too boggy, residents have accessed the dredge through Centennial Park as the only option, and this has added to further community conflict. So why did they stop the maintenance of the road to that level? And can it please be repaired and access restored, which would allow all of us to do that? And I say that as somebody who uses it almost daily.
Thank you, Director.
So I don't know what the decision that was made 20 years ago was. It sounds like it was potentially a decision that was made sometime around amalgamation or just after. The reality of it is that we have a road management plan and a road register which clearly sets out which roads we maintain and which ones we don't. This is not on it. We will undertake a review of that when the new council comes on board, so we have to review that register within 6 months of the new council coming on board, and I'm more than happy to put this in as one of the roads that we review, along with another quite long list now of extra roads that people would like to see added to the road register.
Thank you. Thanks for attending to that. I'll just go. Sorry, John.
Can I just respond to the director? Firstly, with the customer requests, what happens, I come to the hall and there's a leak somewhere, or there's a toilet something flowing or whatever. So I tend to ring it through, and then the next day I get a text message back saying it's completed, and the hall's going to be hired that day. I come down, no, the leak's still happening, the toilet's still not working, the oven's still not working. Yet I've been told through the system that it's been completed. So it's a bit awkward when you're hiring a hall and you're telling me, no, it was fixed yesterday, and get here and it's not fixed. Could be a community meal and the oven's not working, which we did have that situation at one stage. And the other thing that happened is that the contractor travels out several times. I think at one stage the seniors can get the indoor bowls and the air conditioner man comes to service the air cons. He's wasted his trip. The hall's being used. So what I tend to do is I put my name and my phone number. Right, contact me, let me know. I can tell the contractor, which I did a couple of weeks ago, because the guy doing the work actually knew me, and I tell him when the hall's available and when it's not. So he's not sending a crew out to work on the hall while the hall's in hire. So that's, it's all about if they contact somebody on the committee, I generally put my name on it. I can then advise when the hall is available. On 2 occasions, actually because I had worked for the Rural City, people knew that I was involved out here. They rang me up, what was the issue? I sent them a photo, they bring the part out, they fit it, they go home, one trip. So the main issue that I have is that let us know when a contractor is coming out, whether it's the day before, even on the morning, like the week before, whatever. So I can let that contractor know, 1, what the issue is, so we can bring the right bits, 2, that the hall is available. That was my main issue, is time being wasted, and people turning up and they can't do their duties. The Dobson Street issue, there's a guy who's on the Eldorado Road, uses electric mobility scooter. That's his safest way to get to the shop or Centennial Park, because the shared path starts at the end of Dobson Street and the corner of the Centennial Park. So if he can get through that 20 metres of rough ground, he's got a safe track to the shop. Because the edge of the road is rough as nuts, can I say that? And there's a steep drop off both sides, so, and it's probably got to travel 500-600 metres on the edge of the main road. People travelling through at 68 k's, so he zips down Dobson Street. At the moment, he can get through the rough area because it's not wet. The other guy, he's confined to a wheelchair. His son likes to keep the footy. Now they've got goal posts at Centennial Park and rugby posts for those who want to come out on the 12th and see the game. As a bloke, he goes down, he lives in Dobson Street, he zips through that for 20 metres, takes his boy down there, and they kick the footy around with other people in the town. So it's about accessing the end of that shared path, which stops at the boundary of Centennial Park and Dobson Street. So, and the graders used to go down and turn through there probably 15 years ago. Because they roll on the back when they graded that road, they go down, they turn at the gate, they grade that little rough section, and now it doesn't seem to happen, they don't go that far. But it's, we would like to see that access for people to get easy to the end of that shared path.
Okay, thank you, John. Take that under advisement. Thank you very much. Another question from Mark Saunders for the question to be addressed at the public meeting tonight. Question 1 was the transfer station closures without notification to users. Mark, do you have a response to that one? Do you have a problem there?
Yes, it's Mark here. There you go. Unfortunately, I'm going to put our hand in our heart and say we had a staffing mix-up, which has caused an issue there. We certainly apologise that we've spoken to our customer service centre and said that anyone that has a concern or was put in a difficult spot by that, if they could just call back up and we will try to remedy a solution to that, whether that's free tip vouchers or such. We've now resolved the staffing issue and we shouldn't have any issues going forward.
Mark's second question was Old Coach Road maintenance, speed and warning signs, fatalities that have been, serious injuries both past and potential for the future.
Yep, certainly acknowledge the fatality and how difficult that would have been for everyone. And also acknowledge that you may not like this answer. So Old Coach Road is maintained as per the road management plan. It's an access road right up to 505, which is your property there, and then it becomes a limited access track from there. I drove that road this afternoon before the meeting, and there's some minor sections that could be improved, but all in all it was in good condition. There was no sections that require work in accordance with our road management plan. And no work is required. I do acknowledge that there is a existing customer request with regards to overhanging branches, and the team are going to get to that. That's still in the process of being completed, and we will certainly get to that. As far as the speed limit, until rural roads have a set speed limit of 100 kilometres an hour, and the limits are actually approved by the Department of Transport, not Council, and they will not reduce the speeds on unsealed roads. So their definition is that you should just drive to the road conditions. So I don't have any movement in with the rural roads, a little bit different for roads in town. And as far as warning signs, I'll have the team have a look at that, review the road and install any warning signs that are required under the current guidelines.
Can I just respond? So there's no speed signs at all, just...
So there's no speed signs at all, so we accept that it's 100 kilometres an hour, other than the fact there's a 9 kilometre, squiggly line saying it's going to be windy. So you're saying now that you see that road is maintained properly at 100 kilometres an hour acceptable speed limit. You're saying that now? After a fatality and a near fatality, and there was a near fatality from a local resident in a collision between a motorcycle and a ute, which he could have easily been killed. But you're saying now that that's all acceptable, and you're not going to make an effort to put some speed reduction signs, etc., to make people wake up to themselves, especially tourists and the city drivers and the four-wheel drivers that come into this area. Yeah.
So what I have committed to do is to get the team to review the road and install any required warning signs. As far as the speed limit on the road, the speed limit is 100 kilometres an hour, but we all need to acknowledge that just because the speed limit is a limit, we still need to drive to the conditions. When driving that road, drove at 45 to 50 kilometres along the whole road. I wouldn't say that that was necessarily safe along the whole entire road. It is certainly not a road that you could drive the entire length of, or any of it really, at 100 kilometres an hour, but that is the way the Act works, and I don't have any control over that, unfortunately.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Mark, you also mentioned, just in relation to question 3, was rate increases. Mark?
I'll just skip that one altogether.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, I mean, to me, the rates were increased, and I'll go two ways here. One discussion you had was about protecting your ability to make decisions in the area, but I believe that the rate increases were made from a Melbourne perspective.
Yeah,
so was there any protection from us to us rate payers from the local, but it just seemed to happen, and it seemed quite excessive. I know it was probably driven by COVID, etc., but it seems like when it suits, will protect you, but when it doesn't suit, well, it's not really our concern. And it was a big whack too.
Yeah,
it was quite expensive.
The rate cap last year was 3.5, and we took it back to 2.9. on the rate cap. The rate cap this year is 2.75.
I think it's more on valuations I was.
Oh, sorry,
concerned
yeah,
about,
yeah, gotcha.
Which affects
Gotcha.
payment.
Yeah, it does. Thank you,
Who does value our properties?
sorry, Brendan.
So the valuations are done by an agency called the Valuer General, which is a Victorian agency. They use a series of mainly contractors at each of the councils. They go through a process of looking physically at a certain number of properties to see, recent sale data, for example, and from that they then provide a value for each property that's based on recent sales experience. There should be a kind of physical inspection of every place every 2 or 3 years, and otherwise it's kind of a desktop exercise that's applied across the category. So if your value goes up by more than the average, you'll pay a bit more than the rate cap. If your value goes up by less than the average, you'll pay a bit less. If your value goes up by exactly the average, you'll generally pay whatever the rate cap is. So it's a kind of averaging exercise, but those values are set by the state government agency for us to apply.
And that's coming from a Melbourne perspective.
And the rate cap, the valuations from years gone by, the real estate used to be done every 4 or 5 or 6 years. Now they're done every year. So if your value goes up this year, you'll get that increase straight away rather than that time lapse.
I would just add very briefly, some of the agents that they use, the subcontractors that they use, will be based here in region, so they'll have experience in the Eldorado market and the Wodonga market and so forth. They won't necessarily be coming up from Melbourne with no experience in the local market.
Yep, please, Jack.
The valuations are, the process is largely coordinated from a Melbourne perspective, but the rating strategy as well locally is kind of in between there and overlays in that process, and that modifies the actual amount of rates paid dependent upon various property types. So there's a modifying factor, and that is controlled locally. Just wanted to make note of that.
Thank you, Jack. I'll move on to another question.
Review shortly. Yeah.
I'll move on to another question from Brian Fox. Asked a question for the April meeting. Question 1, the last council meeting I attended, I questioned the agenda of council's report, listings as nil. I'm of the opinion that the opinion that this suggestion was well received by Mayor Dean. However, nothing has changed. On page 6 of tonight's agenda, that the councillors' reports say nil. I'd just like to point out that council reports are there for council if there's something extremely important that is on their mind, or a event or a program that they have been to that is extremely noteworthy for the whole community. I will say we could go into council reports of what we've done every month, and we'd be here for another 3 hours to listen to Councillor Fuller, Councillor Grant, Councillor Benton Bussell and Councillor Herring and what they have done council-wise. So yes, we certainly could report on things more that way, but we certainly do when the time arises that something very important comes up that the community needs to be aware of. Question number 2 from Mr. Fox is regarding rubbish bins distributed within the city. So that's all the residential houses there. I asked council to immediately mark all the bins with a significant identifiable large number, with some words of encouragement for residents to report by text if the bin needs attention, such as emptying or cleaning. This matter is urgent and important and should be completed within 14 days. Director Goon and I know that bins are part of your life. Would you have anything to add, Mr. Fox? Sorry.
And roads and footpaths. Thanks for the question, Brian. No, council will not be installing numbers on the bins.
Thank you. And if he is referring also to town bins, those bins are collected on a regular basis, and our drivers go around the streets every day and sort of they see a bin that's overflowing, they will have an empty straight away. So that's the end of those questions there. Are there any public questions? Yes, please, just wait, I'll grab a microphone, and I know who you are, former councillor, but could you please state your name?
Good, thanks, Mayor Bruce, Kieran and Clem. My question follows on from land use planning. we have the rural zoning. We have restrictions on the amount of dwellings we can have on that, mainly to preserve it for agricultural use. If we want to go and have any buildings on it bigger than 3 square metres, we require to get a permit. When we get a permit, the value is stated on the permit what we're going to have, and when that works are completed, that value is added to your CIV for your rates. We now see that we've got solar factories coming onto rural agricultural land, onto the rural land. My question is, with when their development is finished, is that added onto the CIV? And we know that when we trade land or assets, that establishes the value of the value in general. There's been at least one of the solar farms at Winton, which I think is in Benalla Rural City, has changed hands, and I presume they buy the company and not the specific things. So really, the councils might know what value was put on that. But my question is, if the value of that development is added onto the CIV or not, and if not, why not?
Yep, thank you. It's a great question, and certainly solar farms do pay huge amounts of rates or a cash amount in lieu. Did you have something further to
You've summarised it. The short answer is no, it's not added on to the farmer's CIV, it's not the farmer's asset. What does happen is the operator of the solar farm pays, I can't remember the exact term for it, Jack probably does.
Payment in lieu of rates.
Yeah, pie law. So they do pay an amount that is based on a particular formula, so the contribution similar to rates is paid by the operator of the solar farm.
Councillor Harry?
I can imagine, we're looking at multi-metre for some of these solar farms, it might be 50 to 100 metre. Should be a lot of, if they're paying their fair share of rates, it should take the municipality range for a damn long time.
Well, yeah, just to pick up on a small point of clarification, they don't pay the fair share of rates or equivalent to the rates that would otherwise be levied on that land. The payment in lieu of rates is a much, much larger figure than any rates that would be paid on that land or any other use or activity.
Correct.
And not I think that needs to be recognised.
A large.
So the point you're getting at, in that you hope that their contribution to the communities they're based in for these energy generation facilities, you hope that it's a big one. I would say that I think it is quite large. And I would point out that payment in lieu of rates, there's a set recommended kind of base level, but it's a negotiation process in which the municipality is involved in. So rural city of Wangaratta, for example, will negotiate with renewable energy generating operators a payment that we would expect to receive. And there are set amounts, like a ballpark figure put out by the state government as part of the whole suite of efforts the state government put out to ensure that there are really good, strong community paybacks and benefits, that these companies don't come in and just build their farms and get away scot-free sort of thing. So yeah, I just want to highlight that point, and we could leverage that and turn it into a very a strong negotiating point and positive for our community.
Thank you. Thanks for the question, Karen. Any other questions from the floor? John?
Back in 2018, 2019, council sent a team out here to redesign our toilet block at the back of this hall. It doesn't have a 12-foot disabled. So there's a consulting engineer and other people come out. We do have a set of drawings, all paid for and in colour. tiles selected, colour of the tiles, colour of the paint, the whole thing is there.
Is it on the wall still?
It's still on the wall. I'll take it all individually up there later. The question is, at that point there was going to be a program to renovate some halls within the rural city. When is that program, or is that going to restart, and when is it coming to Eldorado?
Yep, thank you, John. Good question. Director Goodman?
I was just going to make a smart comment that perhaps Eldorado region needs a solar farm with a community grants program to fund some of this.
Thank you, John. Director Goodman?
Thanks, John. I'm fairly sure this project was part of the rural placemaking projects that were throughout the municipality and are still going. A significant amount of money was put into Eldorado, and I think it was back in 2018 as part of those works when we sealed Tresize Street and a few others, and did some drainage upgrade works and a few other bits and pieces. And I believe from memory the value of that was around the $900,000 mark at the time. What council have put aside since then is around about $150,000 for two communities. So we've done the rural placemaking plans and infrastructure plans for all of the smaller townships around, so right through Millwall, Chestnut, Whitfield, and we started with Eldorado as the first one that got some work done. We are about 3/4 of the way getting through all the other townships with that sort of 150. Once we get back to around to Eldorado, which is, I'm going to say it's next year, but it could be the following year, and I apologise, I'll check on the year and come back to you. Then we would go back to those plans, have another conversation with the community and see what projects out of that they would like to see to continue. What the plans do actually give the whole committee, and certainly I have council officers who are happy to work on this with the committees, is to try to go for other funding. So it sits within a council strategy. You've got design plans, you've picked out tiles, I'm sure they're beautiful, but it does allow you to at least have that ability to be able to go for other funding grants as well, and I have officers who are more than happy to help you work your way through that process if that's another way you would like to go, rather than waiting for the rural placemaking funding to come around again.
I'll also say, John, our draft budget is coming out and we ask for submissions to the budget process, which is open basically now. So if you get another submission in, it'll be looked at that way again for this coming year.
We have been doing fundraising like within the hall itself over the years. So we're working towards to do that.
Good. Look forward to seeing that submission. Natasha. Sorry, I'll just give you the microphone. Can you just state your name, Natasha?
Sure, I'm Natasha Lobbin. So I've got a two-pronged question. So the first was mention of the differential rating system earlier, and that the review is pending. So I'd just like a bit of an update on how that review will occur. And obviously I'm very keen to ensure the rural lands differential rate continues. And then the second part to my question is around I believe there used to be an agricultural advisory committee to council, but that no longer exists. Why was that removed, and will you reinstate that again?
Thanks, Natasha. Sarah, did you want to talk on the rate review?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So under the Local Government Act, each time we commence with a new elected council, which is due in October this year, there are then a number of kind of key documents that councils are required to refresh and develop. There's a community vision, a council plan, an asset management plan, and one of those is a revenue and rating plan. That plan talks to both the rates and also to how council raises the rest of its revenue, grant funding, user pays-based fees and charges, those kinds of things. The Act doesn't require that community consultation is undertaken as part of it, but councillors may elect to do that, so that's a conversation we'll have with the newly elected councillors once they're on board, and then we'll obviously communicate with the community about it as when time comes.
Is that something that will be discussed in the election process? That's a really big, important.
I think rates typically come up.
Yeah, but, you know, like whether or not they would, yeah. Typically, council has had, you know, community input on the rating system. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That second part of the question about the
Agricultural Advisory Committee.
advisory group, I might get Harvey to talk on that quickly. As been.
Thanks, Natasha. It was decided, I'm going to say probably only two years ago, to disband the Economic Development Committee Advisory Group and the Agriculture Advisory Committee Group. I think the functionality of it was struggling to be able to be effective for the people to put the time in and volunteering to get things on the table from the group. It was also a struggle to get people that could sit on those committees. It doesn't say that we've got rid of the I still hold the agricultural portfolio and it's come down to more of an officer level, if I can put it that way, but I still have to catch up with the people in the economic and agricultural areas. And so through the networking of the community that I get now, get some, I think, more traction, quite frankly, to other departments going forward. If that answers your question. But I think we are, to be referred to Brendan here, whether we're still going to review that after a period of time to see how effective all those changes will take place. So I think that might be really due now.
And Natasha, also new council coming on in October. That could be a good thing to get up and going again if the new council's got the appetite to have it. Hopefully led by some of our councillors here. Great, thank you. Any other questions from the floor? Yes, please. Just one moment, I'll grab the microphone.
Kelly Bradley, proprietor of the general store and tavern. Just wanting to know how long we have to wait for the gutter to be fixed at the front of the store. 4.5 years we've been there and we just keep patching up all the potholes and letting it flood and sending people out and nothing's been done to sort of support us and help us.
Great, thank you. Dr. Goon, you have a response for that one, or we'll take it on review and look into it further?
Yeah, happy to take that on review and we'll look into it further. I'm not aware, Kelly, but we had a conversation, so we can have another one, I'm sure.
That'd be great. Thanks for your question. Great question. Yes, please.
As a person who uses, devices to get around, that patch is, I can't.
It is, it's dangerous. Very dangerous.
Yeah, I just can't use it. It's very certified, it's not.
A couple of years ago.
And it has nothing's been.
So there's obviously been a fair bit of work that's been done on it.
Yeah. Okay, we'll have a look into it and get back to you at the community.
Yeah, no one's sort of come to let us, there's no communication from anyone to let us know what's going on. Everything else got done in Eldorado, but we just
But not that
have
patch.
we slide every year. It's,
Okay. Yes, thank you.
Again, that was part of the design plans that were done as part of the rural placemaking project, so that's why that's taking time to roll through. If we look at all of the plans that were done for the various communities, they are all staged over many years. They're not things that we're going to get in and do. And if we look at some of the towns have got more than others. You look at Whitfield, that's got quite a bit. Chestnut, Eldorado actually got quite a bit at that first time as well. We are coming back out. Happy to chat to you, Kelly, and look through the etc.
like the most important part of Eldorado is the post office and the tavern. There's nothing else here. But we get seen, like we get left last. Every other one goes and that got done, but we seem to flood into shop floods where nothing sort of gets done.
More than happy to come out and have a conversation.
Great, thank you. Before we go out, sorry, any other questions from the gallery before we go out to our confidential? Yes, Mr. Carey.
Michael Carey. In regard to our rural vision roads, the shoulders haven't been graded for a long time now, and the damage as a result of the lack of maintenance is fairly detrimental to our roads, and it's become dangerous with the up to like 150mm drop off the bitumen. And we do get a bit of rain, water pools there. The dirt from the edge of the road is moved out, so it's higher than the bitumen. So it's always going to hold water there, and any car that goes off, it's just going to make it worse every time. Why hasn't this maintenance been done?
Sure. Dr. Goonan?
I can't give you a direct answer to that. Are we talking more in general drop-offs, or are we specific roads, or, sorry, a bit more context?
Nearly every road in our council, the shoulders haven't been graded, and most of them are dangerous.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I would agree that most of them are dangerous. We certainly do quite a bit of assessments. We do a lot of assessments on our roads. Again, and I know people get sick of hearing this, but as per the road management plan, which is our document that we work to, so we do know where the edge drop-offs are and where they're not. Certainly from a maintenance of shoulders on sealed roads, I actually think that is the one thing that we could do better on. I don't disagree, but I certainly don't believe that the majority of our roads are dangerous.
Might be when you come out to discuss Marcus in relation to the front of the Eldorado cabin installed there, we might have a look at a few roads there and just see what we can come up. If you could signify some specific roads for us to go and have a look at and make sure of, so that would be good. Happy to see it, happy for you to text it to me so then we can put it on a CRMS system, which would be good. Yes, sir.
John Eldorado, I'm a resident here at Eldorado, have been for about 12 months. The traffic management plans that you have, Marcus, your edge drops, what would you say would be your intervention levels for your height? Is that roughly about 4 inches? Is it 3 inches? What would it be?
Yeah, John, I don't know the figure off the top of my head. I would have to go and check that for you, but yeah, it is around that 100 to 150 mil. I don't know exactly that. Yes, so 3 to 4 inches. Yeah.
So most of the ones that I've seen around the Eldorado area, we go regularly to the tavern on a Thursday night, and you'll see that some past the tavern, there's some massive edge drops. You actually need a four-wheel drive to go on the sides of the road. And we've been here 12 months and I don't think they've ever been graded. The grader has gone out the Beach Left Eldorado Road and they've done one strip, but they haven't done around near the tavern. You know what I mean? Like they do come out here, the patrol guys do come out here, but it seems like it's a selective job that they actually do. They'll do a few and then stop and then it's not consistent.
Yeah, I agree. And John, I think as you would also know, it's not just about the size of the drop, it's also about the length. As I said, we certainly, it's one area we could improve in is how we proactively maintain our shoulders. We are really just reactively maintaining them at this point in time. There's a number of reasons for that, but one of the main ones is the weather over the last 2 years. With it drying out, we will catch up, but again, we need to do a better job of maintaining those shoulders. I'm aware of that, but it is not just about the drop, it is actually about the distance as well. And I know that's a frustrating conversation for everyone, I totally agree, but that's what we work to.
Thank you. Councillor?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that notwithstanding certain issues in local areas, I do have confidence that Rural City of Wangaratta, that our team does manage the roads in this municipality reasonably well. When I travel in some places throughout the state, I see some places and I think, oh gee, this is a lot rougher than I'm used to travelling on. It's just anecdotal. But I guess just on the back of my Director Goonan's comments around the recent weather and struggles. I think it's a sector-wide issue with respect to funds for managing roads. Like all local government is struggling, and there has recently been a significant increase in the funding in that area from the federal government, or commitments to that.
Commitments?
Yeah, commitments. So yeah, I do hope that follows through.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harry. John?
Yeah, just to continue on a bit from what Tom was saying, there's a bus stop in front of my place. Patrolleys will come out and they'll fix a pothole at Dobson Street, and 7 metres across the width of the road, about 9 metres at the bus stop, 2 big potholes, they just drive away. And 2 weeks later they come back and they fix those 2, and they missed the 2 at the end of Squirrel Yard Lane, 60 metres away. Like, what's the work practice? I mean, the patrol is 8-9 years ago. They went out a road, they fixed every white guide post, they see a pothole, they see a drop off, they fixed it as they went. And they could tick that road off, that's done. Right? Might need to come back for a month, whatever. But now they come out, do 1 pothole, 2 weeks later, they come and do another 2. They were there in the first place, and it was a school bus stop. What's the work practice? Why is that happening?
Yep, thank you, John.
I think we'll all agree that things were done better 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, but I'll be definitely saying that in 50 years' time as well, referring back to the time now. I actually think that we, as I said before, we have an issue where we're being far too reactive and not proactive enough with some of our maintenance at the moment, and that is particularly around potholes and edge drops in particular. So I am seeing what you're seeing. It is something that has crept in over the past little bit. It's no fault of the teams. We are working on a new system that will allow us to be far more proactive about the way we go about things. The difficult bit to understand in this, and again, I'm sorry to keep harping on about it because it's not the thing that everyone wants to hear, is that we have a road management plan which sets up that and what's an intervention level. So what they're doing is going out and addressing those ones that are at intervention level. We need to get to a point where we're proactive and we're addressing the ones that haven't reached the intervention level yet at the same time as we're doing the ones that reach intervention. So understand what you're saying, and it's a work in progress.
Thank you, Natasha. If we just leave that to the last question, thank you.
Yeah, sorry, just one quick question. We spoke about the road management plan. Is there a gutter management plan in regards to rural roads? And because essentially the gutters, when we moved here 10 years ago, took the water away. At the moment, the gutters are full after that big flood we had a few years ago, and just they fill up. That's what happens. And they have been not one gutter has been cleaned by council since we moved here 10 years ago on the farm, which means our farm now floods. Our house, we can flood under the house also because of these gutters. And essentially, any work that is done to repair the roads is immediately damaged on the next downpour because water cannot get away. So where is gutter maintenance on rural roads in that road management plan?
Thank you, Director.
Yes, so gutters or open drains, swales are within the road management plan. They're managed under the same plan, and so are footpaths. So just because it's called the road management plan doesn't mean footpaths aren't in there. So it is all of that. As far as drainage issues at your particular location, more than happy to chat to you about that and go through it. Yeah, so probably best to speak to me rather than someone who maybe doesn't have the ability to pull funding through for something if it's considered serious enough. We actually spent quite a bit of money on Main Street and dealing with some of the flooding issues there that houses had after the last downpour of rain. So we have spent money on gutters. They may not be out the front of everyone's house. I understand
that.
But
it's not just a house, it's a whole farm. So
yeah.
essentially,
So
farmland that used to be good farmland now goes under significant amount of water.
Yeah, not saying it is this situation in this case, but we also need to understand that what's happening, particularly with climate change, is we're seeing very different rainfall. We're seeing it flow in different directions, etc. So council aren't responsible for all of the water that runs across the road. There is a requirement for people to just deal with water that runs. Happy to have a look at your particular situation, but yes, certainly we are seeing land go under that we have not seen go under before. I think that's evident right across the state.
Thank you, everybody. So, ladies and gentlemen, we do have one more item on there that we need to go through in private. It's a confidential business item. I do ask you please to stay, and then we'll have a cup of tea and some sandwiches here. It will only be a couple of minutes for this confidential item. I'll just go back to CEO McGlar with your conflict of interest. You're declaring a conflict of interest.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Rees. I have declared a conflict of interest in the confidential item 22.1. The nature of that conflict has been declared to you in writing and rather than disclosed here, given that it's confidential business.
Thank you. Director Brindley, you too, but you're still coming into our gathering, and it's not direct to you. Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move a recommendation that Council resolves to close the meeting to members of the public in accordance with provision 3(1) of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider the following items. 22.1, Community Complaint Resolution. Item 22.1 is confidential under the Local Government Act of 2020 as it contains information relating to E, legal privilege information, and F, personal information.
Can I second for that, please? Councillor Benton. Sorry, Councillor. All those in favour? Recommend this carried. Please stay. We'll be back. We're just going into the kitchen. We'll book you a bit of food first and then come back. First time ever.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move a recommendation to reopen the meeting to standing procedures. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller. Can I second it for that, please? Councillor Grant. All those in favour? Thank you, and the meeting is now reopened. Ladies and gentlemen, that comes to the conclusions. I'm just opening to conclude our meeting, formalised ways. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you very much for your input today out here at our council meeting. Again, I was out here recently for the Australia Day and had a great time with the people. Thank you again for your time. Again, we appreciate being out here in the country areas and hearing your concerns and what goes on, and hopefully gives you a bit of a scope on what goes on in council, which is sometimes enlightening and that there. But we look forward to continuing to serve you as best as we possibly can, and hopefully answer some of your queries regarding roads. And again, thank you, Mark, as he always seems to get hammered out at rural meetings on roads. But he enjoys it. But thank you to everyone, my fellow councillors. Even though we argue and fight here at the council table, we actually have a very good relationship outside of what goes on here at the council table. And that's what we're here. We're here to debate it here and not talk behind. We had a dysfunctional council back in 2013, got the sack because they carried it further than what it was at a council meeting open for debate. So, sorry? I'd like to also thank our acting director Simone, who's been filling this role for the last few months and has done a fantastic job. I'd like to make a great round of applause for Megan and for Jess, who always come out here away from their families. And Travis up the back there, he hears everything, so all under the camera first. Thank you everybody, and let's get in and have a cup of tea and have a friendly chat. Thank you.